Good evening. It is a nice, fine Friday evening and time for another knowledge session, totally and entirely about veterans and corporate connects. This is Veteran Corporate Integration, Corporate and Mentors Edition. This is a LinkedIn Local India Live with me, your host, Preeti Chaudhary. We have three stellar guests here with us today. I will bring them into the stream soon enough. Couple of quick reminders to the audience today. Please let your questions and comments keep coming into the comment section of this LinkedIn Live. This is a dialogue and a conversation. The more you ask, the better it is for all of us for our collective learning. So, with that, once again, a warm welcome to all the audience, to the panelists, to my co host on this evening's edition of Veteran Corporate Integration, Corporate and Mentors Edition with me, Preeti Chaudhary. Time to bring the panelists and my co host into the stream. Please allow me to do that. Let me get Colonel Abraham Cherian into the stream. Good evening. And we have Shiv Kumar into the stream as well. Very good evening. And then we have our dear friend Vinay Trivedi into the stream as well. And last but not the least, my co-host and back-end support partner, Colonel Amit Verma, retired. Here we are. Good evening, everybody. It is Gandhi Jayanti, work from home, but I'm sure it is not a day off for any of us here today. But then, such is life. You've got to do what you got to do. And in spite of all of that, thank you so much for taking your hour and a quarter out of this schedule and coming and talking to us right here on this edition of Veteran Corporate Integration, LinkedIn Local India Live with me, Preeti Chaudhary, and my dear friend, Colonel Amit Verma. First things first, you guys need no introduction, but I am anyway going to go ahead and introduce you very, very briefly. We have with us our dear friend Colonel Abraham Cherian, who has recently moved to HSBC. He is now located in Bangalore. Welcome to Bangalore, Abe. And then we have Shiv Kumar, who is with Lowe's India, who have started into their veteran hiring journey, pioneering mentoring program for veterans in this country. And last but not the least, we have our dear friend Vinay Trivedi, who is from ToneTag, and again somebody who brings the human element into the HR. So welcome to all of you, and my dear friend, my co-host, Colonel Amit Verma. Let's get the ball rolling, folks. And the thing to start with, something that comes to my mind straight away. And I'll start with the veteran here because we are talking about veteran corporate integration, So let me start with you, Abraham. What is veteran corporate integration to you, please? Over to you. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, straight off the bat, uh, you know, we've all sort of learned camouflage and concealment in the army or wherever we've been. So I think integration is, when you reach a stage where you're not distinguishable from, other people who are not veterans in that same organization. You're like any other person in that organization, right? So I think that's the point when integration becomes complete. Uh, that is to say, for example, um, people are not able to make out that you're a veteran unless there's a conversation around it, and you say that, look, I'm a veteran. Okay, that's the ideal integration that can happen. And so there are certain certain parameters to it, the way you, I mean, the simplest is the way you talk, your vocabulary, whether you're able to talk the same language that people in your organization are talking, um, whether you understand the business, and what you are trying to do in that organization is aligned with what the business wants, and you're able to understand so well that you're one step ahead of others who are doing the same thing, right? And the third is when you reach that level of comfort, when that you're able to say, look, uh, I'm now well entrenched in this system or in this organization, and I can help other veterans, um, join my organization, right? That's the level of comfort that if you can achieve, I would say that you have integrated, right? So those are my very quick thoughts on this.
Very apt and very business-like and forces kind of thoughts, So let's move on to Shiv for now, my dear friend. You have been now dealing with veterans for at least a good 4 or 5 months, and maybe more from your hiring that you started with veterans. Your experiences around veteran and corporate integration, your thoughts, please. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Preeti. So, a few things. I completely echo what Colonel Abraham was mentioning. So, when he spoke of the, very fact that when we stop looking at oneself as a transitioning veteran and then start looking at the individual as a corporate person itself, I mean, that is when there is true integration. I don't think, I can put it any better than that. That is, one very, very important aspect. The other thing would be when the individual stops looking at, ambiguity as a handicap. That is one thing that I have observed, because most of the times what I hear often from folks who transition right out of the defense is that there are no instructions, there is no manual of sorts, but then the reality is that there is no manual, and that is the very, very big challenge that one needs to deal with. So how does one really get comfortable with the idea of working with ambiguity? And there may be a few things which may be vague, so that's the second aspect. And I think we were also speaking about the ROI aspect of it. And I think somewhere that's like extremely, extremely important, because at the end of the day, it is business. And there is, that's the reality. It is business. And, one needs to understand that right at the start. So that would be my next point. And last but not the least, when one gets comfortable with the idea of asking for help, in this maze of corporate that we speak of, I think that is when true integration actually starts. So these would be my three important points. Over to you, Preeti.
Thank you for that, my dear friend. Again, very clear, very concise. There's no ambiguity right there. Straight away sinking into somebody's head if they are there to receive it, the right way. With that, last but not the least, dear Vinay, as somebody who's quite observant and who's very human in their approach of this entire HR business, you have seen and you have observed and you have imbibed. What do you think should be or should happen or should not happen at veteran corporate integration? Over to you, my dear friend. Thank you.
Thank you. I think first and foremost, we need to breathe, breathe in and breathe out, and not create this whole manifestation in our heads about how this integration will happen, what will entail when they integrate into the corporate. Just breathe in and breathe out. I think if you do that every day for 15 minutes while you're working towards your integration, that will ease things up a little bit for you. Your integrations are like doing your recce. When you're out in an unknown area, the first thing that you would do is do a recce of what is there in the surrounding, how does that area behave, who are all there in that area, what happens when that area is attacked. So just do that recce while you're taking that step, because that's what will give you that confidence. Third thing, I think one needs to leave titles away. When you're integrating into corporates and which is what Kalan Abraham also said, that nobody should remember you with your titles, essentially means that, start thinking and behaving in a manner where your title doesn't define who you are, but it should be what you want to do. Fourth thing is, I would also say to leave your stiffness a little bit away. People pride in a lot of things that they have been doing while they were in the armed forces. That could be a tad bit intimidating for the other side of the table when they suddenly listen into things like, oh, I have a habit of doing these 5 things. it can just take somebody away saying, okay, let's stay away. He has a lot of habits and I want to be guarded till the time you break that ice. So you leave your stiffness away, loosen up a bit. It only helps you integrate better. And the last thing is you need to become childlike. You need to be curious. You need to be inquisitive. You should not have things in the back of your head that, oh, I've done truckloads of this. Even if you think something is very stupid that is happening around you, the minute you will start, judging them, you will start coloring your ideas, and that will again create as a manifestation. So be childlike. So really, 5 things is breathe, do your Retd, leave your titles away, leave your stiffness away, and be childlike and curious. These are my 4 or 5 very simple points that I think are important.
So I
Exactly
just like
how
to.
I exactly sorry, yeah, go ahead. I was just saying exactly how I thought it would be, totally human, totally with it. Over to you, Ev. Yep.
Yeah. So since I'm the veteran representative here, I must also uh, voice what the expectations of veterans are when they're coming out. And I'm saying this without uh, judging it, right? So one is, people have hierarchy on their mind a lot, right? So what level is that level good for me? Is vice president good for me, or is director good for me, or is it all kinds of questions? Is senior manager a good enough level for me, or is it not? Right. One is that. Second is about there's a lot of conversations on compensations and salaries, and there are these templates and benchmarks that people talk about. Oh, an officer with 20 years of service, if this person is not getting 35 lakhs or 40 lakhs or whatever that number is, you not got a good deal. So there are conversations like that. So that's an expectation. That's why there's a conversation like that. And then the other thing is, about what's the kind of work that this veteran be expected to do. So that is a question that most veterans have. uh, will I have managed 600 people, or I have managed 300 people, and now I've been told to do this. I don't have any people working for me, and I've been told to do this which I used to do as a captain. um, yeah, fair, but maybe you're being paid 5x of what you were paid as a captain to do that and enjoy it. But then there is an expectation, right? And those are things that probably the other side needs to understand. And because once you understand it, you can also dispel those misconceptions, right? So I'm saying this because I've been on both sides. I've also been, tried to hire someone from the armed forces after I've come in. I've been on the interviewee side, and I recall one interview that went really badly. That was like a closed. It was like a closed thing. It was like the last interview, and I messed it up royally, and I didn't get that job. So I'm going back to you know the point that the last speaker just said about how you respond in an interview. If you come across as somebody who says, I know everything and I've done everything in life, and so I can handle everything that you throw my way, it's not going to work well, right? Yeah.
No, I'll tell you another problem that, and I think Shiv would understand this. We have deep admiration and respect for people who are coming over from the armed forces. So for us, in our head, we are already looking at people who are transitioning at a certain level. Then we are looking at what kind of roles do we give to these people, and then we do a lot of things to carve out roles. Of course, those roles will have 80% transactions, which may be shitty and which may not be liked. But we would have done research for possibly a month to see what can we carve out. But we can't, remove transactions. That, suddenly when a veteran comes, he or she, suddenly is taken aback, or they wonder, oh, is this the kind of work they want us to do? And which is why I mentioned, leave your stiffness away,
Yeah.
only help you integrate better, because we are already looking at you at a certain pedestal, and even we may have to start treating you as human beings and not, with a lot of aura, because that also might, definitely help. But from our side also, we also are intimidated. We are in awe. We have so much respect, right, Shiv? I mean, I'm sure you would agree. We are like, it's full desh bhakti ki bhavna, and then we are like, "Acha, inko kya kaam de?" It's definitely a problem with us as well.
Shiv, why don't you add something over there? Whatever you've experienced, it's absolutely all right. We are having a conversation here. And in that respect, it is only going to teach people on the other side a thing or two, probably. All yours.
Yeah, so I can't agree more with what Viti was mentioning. So yes, when people come to us, from the veteran community to be interviewed, the challenge over there is that yes, we already respect them for the skills that they bring. And I was interviewing, one of the veterans, and the person, had faced terrorists. He had, gone on UN missions. He had done, many, many, many more things. And then all of a sudden, I was thinking, okay, do I look at him as a project manager? Do I look at him, in operations? Do I look at him in which kind of role? Because everything that I were to offer him, it will seem much, much less challenging as compared to what the individual has done already. So that is certainly a challenge that we experience as corporate HR folks. But then at the end of the day, we also need to be reassured that it is okay. But if the person comes back to us and tells us that, like Colonel Abraham was mentioning rightly, that I led 500 people, I led 1,000 people, somewhere even we get intimidated that, okay, what is the fitment going to look like? And that becomes the challenge. So I would completely agree with what VD was saying.
Amit, I'm sure you have a thing or two to add on over here. Go for it, my friend.
Preeti, I think all the terminologies that I could have said have already been done. So we have the camo part over there, we have the recce, we have the complete gamut already discussed. What I will pick on is the halo part. You cannot be camouflaged if you got a halo around your head. It doesn't work because you will never merge. You will stand out like a sore thumb. So that's the line which Vinay said. You got to lose a few bricks from your shoulders. It's called brass, but that doesn't help. And what Shiv just said, I will amplify that. So what, you led 500 people, that was in a different system. You were required to excel in a different set of circumstances, with a different set of rules, with a different set of expectations. Take the deliverable. Did you win? Yes. Did you win again? Yes. Take that spirit and now come out. If you have to pick up your own damn briefcase, if you have to do your own damn work, do it. Nobody is going to type out the email for you, and damn sure nobody is going to take a printout of the email and put it in front of you for your signature. Kindly. Now that's the challenge. The worry I have is that maybe this over formalization of the relationship between veterans and corporates. We have respect, we have expectations. That's the two sides of the story. Let's cut it down to the bare brass minimum. You want professionals. Find out that professional. If the person is not professional enough, he or she needs to be told they need to come back when they grow up. And that doesn't have anything to do with age.
Yeah, so
Thank
maybe I
you.
can add
Yeah.
something here.
I was just coming to you, Abe, in fact. Please, all yours.
Yeah,
Go for it.
so these are my thoughts, but I feel that veteran is not really integrated really well if he or she needs uh, a veteran aligned job, in the second or third go after you've come out, right? The first job after you come out, it's understandable that you're looking for support, and so you look for maybe you look for jobs that are out there specifically for veterans. Things like Vinay and Shiv are helping out and things like that. But after that, uh, if you made use of that opportunity well, um, when you at some point you say I want to change and I want to move on to another role, And if you still need that support of that veterans get when they transition, maybe you've not integrated so well. That's my thought. Because if you really understood what it's all about, in your second job you should be able to do it on your own steam, for the value that you've added to that organization and that reputation that you've created for yourself. you know
Yeah.
then you don't need the veteran crutch. I'll call it a crutch. You don't need it the second time and the third time around. You should be looking at jobs that don't need that word veteran around it, right?
Sure.
It's whatever you're doing, you excelled at it, and you're going on to a bigger role or a lateral move into another organization, and you're doing it because you're good at it. And that's when you can say that, look, yeah, you've integrated well, and then
So,
you're in a position to really help others do that too.
so you're saying that, once you have done all of this internalization and moved away from the stereotypes, basically you are then presenting yourself as a professional and
Yeah,
not as a veteran professional. I
yeah,
think that
absolutely.
makes a whole lot of a sea change, actually, Abe. A very good point. And that brings me to something which I would like to ask, Vinay here. Vinay, in your observation, I know you're not hiring veterans, but HR being HR, what are the sort of stereotypes that, how would you handle sort of stereotypes, as in veterans only for, say, admin, or for security, or for whatever supply chain? How would you sort of deal with that, and what's the best way forward to break those stereotypes and look at other alternative ways? And then I'll come to Shiv, because he is actually hiring veterans right now. So both the perspectives. Vinay, over to you, and then I'll repeat it for Shiv again.
You
Thank
know,
you.
I think the problem with stereotypes is because even at corporate HR level, we are not sure what kind of opportunities to actually provide. What will be exciting? Like you mentioned, that somebody, she was mentioning that somebody has dealt with terrorists. We would be, half the time talking to that person in the cafeteria asking, "Kya hua tha?" What was? We'll be more, keen on that. So even we are equally confused on what kind of opportunities to be given. I think what is important and what will help, and if corporates start doing that, is if we are able to carve out an internship model where we have veterans do multiple roles in different departments, and we gain that confidence, they gain that confidence, we see which is the best case match, and we get them deployed permanently in that. Like I said, child, think of it as a manager who's entering from a B school, fresh. We put them in all the departments. Why not that for veterans? Because for them it's a restart. So they are again same point, despite having all the experiences. We should try and carve that out. Maybe it becomes easier. Maybe businesses will have more confidence taking returns. Maybe more roles can be carved out. I think we should start doing that as corporates, and that will do a great deal of service to everybody who's trying in this initiative. That's my, personal thing. And I've actually had retired bankers do internship and teach banking differently, and that's worked. So it's definitely possible. It's doable, and if anybody wants to experiment this, they can talk to me.
Thank you for that. And Shiv, I will come to you with this now. You have been hiring, like everybody knows, for the past 6 months. How did you go around this stereotyping of veterans and not hiring them for what they are known for? How is it that you went around that? And was there anything specific that you had to do? How did you do it, please? I'm really interested to know that. And I'm sure quite a few from the audience will also be interested to know that. Over to you. Thank you.
Sure. So pretty, it's not been an easy task. Let me just, get it out there, and it needs to be a two-way street. Most importantly, yeah, and yes, the moment we think of veterans, we look at them as somebody who is going to be great at administration or in security kind of roles. So what we did was, as much as we had the veterans program, I think it was a learning effort for both. Both our leaders and for the veterans as well. So I think in the bargain, both the parties learned. So it was a win-win for both the parties there. So when our leaders started understanding that these folks can actually do much more and they come with certain skills which are transferable, that made perfect sense to each one of us. And today, I can tell you that the ones we hired, they are in information security and predominantly in information security. So I think it is a shift that is difficult, but then there are certain expectations that we would have of veterans as well. Firstly, be clear about what you want. Like I keep saying, you have fabulous resumes, let me tell you that. But then the challenge today is, as a recruiter, I don't know where to start. That's the biggest challenge. So you need to educate me as much as I need to go and educate myself about where the fitment will happen. So be clear about what you really want. If you're looking at administration, so be it, doesn't really matter. If you are looking at information security, so be it. Whatever the case is, that's perfectly fine. But you be clear when you're speaking with the recruiter. That is one. The second thing is, explain to us. We really do not understand, a few things, and it's okay if you have to break it down for us to, help us understand that, when you go out there on a, any kind of a mission, how does it really tie in, from a project management perspective or an operations perspective if you're on a ship, whatever the case is. So I think explain to us. It's okay. People are, patient. So, we will also learn in the bargain. So I think it's a two-way street. There have been certain stereotypes, but then education is the only way. And I think organizations need to take that additional step of ensuring that there is this frequent conversation between the two communities.
Lovely.
I just
Couldn't have said it. Sure, please go ahead. Yep.
I think the problem that we also have, Shiv, and Colonel Ibrahim as well. A lot of times, veterans have this attitude of hum kar lenge, and which is also the reality that they are able to deliver. But because they are not sure what they'll enjoy, or they are not sure what is it that will excite them, sometimes they get into opportunities that because they can do it, they get into it, but they will not give their fullest because they're also exploring. So I think all of us have a responsibility of providing a window of understanding for each one of these people who come on board to explore multiple things before they can take a call. Because for them, they look at the job description and they'll in their head map saying, "Oh, I can do all of this. I've done this in some format, etc., etc." But are they really going to enjoy doing that? Is a question that can only be answered when they start doing it. So I think in some way, if we are able to provide that kind of a window opportunity, that definitely, be a big practical help for them to decide what they want.
So,
Sure.
so
And with
I
that, with that, I'm just coming to you only saying, please let me just frame this question, and then you can, sort of carry on from whatever you're saying along with this. My question to you would have been, and is, how do you take stereotyping in the sense like there are so many other ways and means veterans can move and channelize and move on to, you've done it yourself, and that is something which I would like to know. But after what you were about to say, that please, over to you.
Yeah. So okay. So very quickly, I was just taking up that point. I think Vinay or Shiv made about explaining what you've done earlier, right? And explaining it in a way that the the recruiter or the hiring manager understands how you're bringing value to that role, and that is possible only if you understand, and as a veteran you've taken pains to talk to people and understand how, what is project management, how what happens in projects, what is it that an organization is looking for, or if you're looking at operations, what is it that they do, and so how can I relate what I did with the job at hand, right? Everything is not about showing you how courageous you were, or you went and killed so many terrorists. Great, fine, but that's that's not relevant to this organization that you're trying to join the way it is. Maybe there is something hidden behind it. It could be about how you plan that operation, how you looked at the logistics, how did you coordinate with communications and other things, right? Because that is going to tell people, look, this guy can connect with other people in the organization, can cooperate well, he understands the value of other functions within the same organization, and he understands how the functions have to be deployed and used and all of that, rather than saying, look, we did this operation and we killed 5 terrorists, or whatever else. It doesn't. So you can do that only if you've actually try to understand what this role is and what does it entail, breaking it down into smaller things, and then going in for an interview, or even before that, then applying for that job and setting up your resume. you know um, that would actually help you get eyeballs, and it would help you help the hiring manager or the interviewing panel remember you after it's done. Look, here's this guy. He has not done exactly the same thing in his previous roles, but he understands what it's all about, right? And he brings in this diversity of experience which I want on my team, right? That's one. The second thing, I think, sorry, I think Amit wanted to say something, so I'll speak after that, if that is okay. Yeah.
I'm taking the line that Abraham sir you just said. The point is the value has to be communicated by the applicant. If the company is going to come and find it, good for them. But that is where most of the trouble starts, because companies either have a different notion or there are stereotypes at play. There was an event done by Amazon International or Amazon Worldwide on 22nd, in which they got veterans to speak to veterans about how to apply to Amazon and how to convert their military experience to an application. The first question a gentleman sitting in Wales asked was, tell me who was your customer. The person was sitting, I think, in Serbia or someplace. He says, I don't know. So then this guy in Wales, he spoke for 2 hours, mind you, 2 hours. He explained to veterans what a customer was. He said, customer is somebody for whom you're doing something, which means you need to break down whatever you did into projects. You need to break it down into processes. You need to break it down into achievements in which you contributed, because there is a very big me which comes in over there as to what did you do. The team remains, but what did you do? And that is what the point is. Nobody hires veterans because they are veterans. Most of the companies who end up hiring veterans in name of veterans are technically qualified people. I'm saying this with absolute seriousness. These are technically qualified people who may have zero or minimal combat experience. Just because somebody worked or lived in a uniform for 20 years, that only entitles them to the word veteran. But the sacrifices that some people made may be more or less. Now the point is, the person who has a technical qualification knows how to leverage it. A person with an engineering degree, a background, can leverage it. He can get into roles. The only point is, people who may not have done a specific technical education, they need to convert their years of experience into something worthwhile.
Yes. So I'll give you a small example, my personal example. Okay. So I'm in an analytics role, and typically, in this role, they're looking for people who have 15, 20, 25 years of experience doing this. I don't have that. Right. So now how do I tell people that, look, I've not been in an analytics job, but I have been analyzing things, right? And I'll give you an example of that. In 2002, we had Operakram, and I was in the School of Artillery. I was an instructor. I was moved to somewhere in the northern command, and I was put in an organization which had a few radars deployed across the line of control, and it was picking up signals of movement, right? And day in and day out, we just looking at the input from those radars. So how do I use it? I said, look, I was in a role where we were analyzing inputs on on a day-to-day input on operational activities of, let's say, the competitor. You can't say it is the enemy, but it's a competitor, and you're analyzing this. Why are you analyzing this? To understand what future course of action these people are going to take, right? And what should I do next? And how is this any different from business analytics? Tell me. It's not, right? But then being able to convey that in a language that an HR person understands, or a hiring manager is looking for somebody who can analyze business and come out with, based on data, come out with some insights, would look at this and say, yeah, okay, this guy he's analyzed data, he's analyzed inputs, and he's, you know otherwise you'll say, look, I'm an artillery officer, I've never done analytics, how these guys say 15 years experience, I don't have it, right? Small short point. Yeah.
Your personal experience, and that is what I was coming to, saying that, breaking the stereotypes you have. And maybe you can very quickly suggest how maybe other people can do that as well, Abe, because then I have an audience question ready for Shiv and for Vinay coming right up. But after, maybe you can talk very quickly about breaking those stereotypes
Yeah,
from your
so
example.
breaking stereotypes. For I think, first is in your own mind. Don't assume that being from the forces, a security and admin job is what you're fit for. In your own mind, you got to break your stereotype and say, look, in the past, people have done security and admin jobs mostly, but I think I'm good for operations. I'm good for, I can talk to people, so maybe I'm good for sales. I can convince people to buy stuff. I'm good with numbers, maybe I'm good in analytics and all of that. In your mind, you got to change your stereotype. That's one. Second is that, which is something that Amit has been saying very vociferously, leave your baggage behind. Your ranks and things are very good when you go to a club or you go to the canteen every month and pick up your liquor. You must use it, right? It gets you respect in your organization. Must use it. That's why or you're interacting with these civil government agencies or something. If you say you're a colonel or a major, you get a little bit more respect, and response is a little different. But in a private organization, maybe it doesn't, it'll put straight jacket you into that stereotype, and you want to get out of that. uh, the other thing I've seen in a lot of resumes, because sometimes I do try to help people rewrite the resumes, it looks more like what in the army you call a record of service. You know, it's not a resume. A record of service is basically a statement of whatever you've done in your army career, and it's listed in a certain fashion. So people just pick that up, and instead of 1, 2, 3, they will put bullet points and just stick that there. You got to work. I mean, if you want to transition, you got to work and change the way your resume looks. It has to be aligned with what you're looking for, not what you did last, but what is the kind of role that you're looking for. So that when, the idea is, again, camouflage. When people look at your resume, they should have to really work hard to make out that you're a veteran. you know, so if your resume is really good, people sometimes they just miss out and say, look, yeah, this looks really great. It happens. And then the other part is, which I think I've mentioned earlier. It always helps to read a lot, to be aware of what's happening out there. And I would recommend, look at Economic Times, Business Standard, whatever. There are a lot of these good media out there. Start reading it, because it's not only going to help your vocabulary. It's not just about talking. It's about understanding what's happening in the world. How does it relate to this business that you're trying to get into? Can you speak about it? Can you understand what the challenges of that business are when you're an applicant, and in an interview, can you say that, look, sir, I think in the next 3 years, this is where this organization is going to be because of the economic conditions, and this is what the competition is doing. You can do that only if you read. And that's how you impress people and say, look, beyond the JD, this is what I can bring. I look beyond this. I'm because of my background, I do more than that. So that's how you break the stereotype. It's not by saying, look, I'll wear a coat and I'll wear a suit, and I will talk. My vocabulary is going to be a little different. No. And incidentally, even in that, I know it's really going down to the bare nitty-gritties, but it helps if you can buy a suit after you leave. Look at, talk to people who are out there, buy a different kind of suit, because Fauji's typically have suits that are outdated. Okay, they're out of fashion. Their ties are regimental ties that don't work. uh, you know and this may sound really stupid, but you're standing out like a sore thumb. You can look at that guy with his mustache and his tie and his thing. You make out this guy's a Fauji with 25 years of experience service. You got to look the kind of things that you do. These are very small things, but they make a difference. All women are not ma'am. You can respect women without calling them ma'am. All people who look older are not sir. And by the same logic, all people who look younger are not your subordinates. Right. So the very basic level, you got to get out of these things and say, look, there is a culture in the armed forces. Outside it's a little different. Try to understand it, and it takes a little effort, but try to come out of that. These small things, body language. By the way, everybody says, the work from home is going to do great wonders, but no, I think, you got to meet people and look at their body language, and that's how a lot of work gets done. And by the same logic, I think interviews in person are very, very different. Your body language can make you sail through an interview because you're sending the right vibes. So all that is very important, right?
So you know what? With that, there is a question about perception, and I'm going to jump straight into that question because it is really interesting, and it's from Madhumita Day, and let me just pull it up here. And this is specifically for Shiv and for Vinay. So the question which comes to my mind is: are corporates looking at veteran status as being a handicap or a competitive advantage? Shiv, I will start with you because you have a little bit of experience in that, and then Vinay can tell us from his 16 years in the HR field. Over to you.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting question, and from a corporate perspective, certainly it's not a handicap. Let me just get it out of the way, first and foremost. Is it a competitive advantage that a veteran has? I would say in many ways it's a competitive advantage because the kind of transferable skills that the individual comes with, I mean, those are skills that cannot be easily taught to anyone in the corporate. So I think it is a competitive advantage for sure. Now, having said that, there are a few challenges. Of course, I'm not going to shy away from calling out those challenges, and I think we've discussed it at length as well. First and foremost, comfort with ambiguity, or being perceived as extremely rigid, or looking at by seniors in the organization as a mandate. I think these are a few things that we find to be a challenge. But overall, once the person transitions effectively into the corporate, it certainly it is more a competitive advantage and not really a handicap.
Okay, thank you very much for those inputs. Over to you, my dear Vinay. What do you think?
Are you able to see this?
Hang on, let me bring you close enough. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
Yep, it says assume.
Wait. I'll show it to you again.
Mhm. Ask out of you and me.
Yeah. So a lot and a lot of us want to live in our own assumptions and to the question that Madhumita asked, and I think that is the biggest stereotype as well. Why do we look at hiring veterans as an advantage or a liability or an asset or a talking point or a part of an agenda? Why? They're normal human beings. They have done a career in the armed forces for a certain years. They're looking to restart. I mean, if we just for a second leave everything else and look at them as human beings who are looking to restart their careers, they obviously have certain experience that anybody else has. I mean, I have an experience in the corporate world. They have experience on the armed forces. I mean, just that, because we are adding this whole facade of so many things. Oh, there's an agenda of diversity and inclusion. There is a competitive benefit that you get. It's a pressure क्यों डालते हो? I mean, just hire somebody and get him to do the job. That's about it. He's got his accolades for serving the armed forces and serving the country, and he'll be remembered for it. And he has those titles with him throughout his life, right? That's it. Take them on board as human beings and get them to do their job. A lot of things will ease down at that level itself, right? So the perception that we have, oh, how do we look at them? What do we think they should do? That itself is adding to a lot of stress in the system, if you know what I mean. That's
I
my
do.
take.
Thank you. And Amit, coming to you, you have something to add right here, my friend. Go for it.
Preeti, what I wanted to say, most of it has been said by Vinay in ways better than I could have expressed it. But I will simply say this: strip the emotion away from the professional. This is not an emotional journey. It's emotional for you, good for you. Grow up. It's a professional transition. You were doing something, you were doing it well in uniform. You are now out of the uniform by choice or by compulsion. Either way, the uniform is not coming back, which means that you take the best of what you had and now you make the best of what your balance of the professional life is going to look like. Where Abraham sir came in from and he said about the analytics part, I will say about presentation. To assume that every veteran will be a competitive advantage is assuming something incorrectly. 80-20. Let's go with 80-20, that 80% would be good, but some people will still have to work on it. Do not come with that assumption that every veteran will get you a competitive advantage or every veteran is looking for some assistance. It is simply a professional moving from one field to another. Now, the challenge is for that professional to make the best of what he has or she has. It's not about complaining, and it's not definitely about looking for doles. That is where the trouble starts. I hope the two senior gentlemen in HR and Abraham sir, who's been out, will discuss this part. How do you find out what your CTC should be? What is it that your value is, and what is it that you are worth? I think that's a discussion which we should be having now.
Okay, so who would like to take that first, please? Either the veteran from amongst us or the HR. Either way,
Maybe I can start
please.
the way I looked at it,
Sure.
because I started from with a blank slate, and now I think I won't say I'm an expert, but I have a fair idea of what I'm worth. You know, so um, this is a conversation that a lot of people have. That major short service should get X, and a colonel with 20 years should get Y, and it's got nothing to do with your rank and your experience. It is the value that you bring to that organization and which you can show that you bring. You got to be able to convince the organization that's hiring you that you're worth, you're going to bring that kind of value. That being said, the thing is, I've also seen a few ads very recently, people putting in posts that, look, major stroke lieutenant colonel stroke colonel, and compensation is 20 lakhs stroke 30 lakhs stroke, depending on your rank you get. And I put in, I commented there that, look, if they're going to give you compensation based on your rank, don't join that organization, because they're not going to give you, they're not going to compensate you for the value that you bring. It's something else. So what do I, how do I look at what I should be worth? One, if it's my first job and I'm going there because I'm there as a veteran and that's the support that I'm getting, I'd look at other veterans who've done the same thing, and what kind of I'll talk to them and understand what that band is. And we have to understand that even for the same role in different organizations, or even within the same organization, you may get different compensations, right? So there's always a band. It's never a number. There's a band, because it depends on how you negotiate or what additional things that you bring, which is not really obvious to everyone. Those kind of things. But once you're in the thing, there are a few things. One, I think about negotiation. Salary is just one aspect of it. There are other things like, who are you reporting to? What's the responsibility that you get? Sometimes you may not get a great salary, but you may get good responsibility that sets you up for a real good growth in your career. There are other things like, it may not be direct compensation in terms of salary, but it may be something like the variable pay component of it, or ESOPs. The larger companies, MNCs, they have the opportunities to educate yourself, right, which the organization takes care of, especially if you're younger and you're really bright, and people are willing to invest in you. You got to look at all of this before saying, look, that I like it or I don't like it. And my personal advice is that, as a veteran, uh, you're never in a situation with your back to the wall. You have experience, you have that confidence, and many of us also have pensions to fall back on. I always say, if you're getting a bad deal, which it doesn't align with what a person with a similar kind of capability should be getting, walk away from there. It's up to you to set that benchmark and say, look, if I don't get this is what I'm expecting. I'm going to walk away. I'm not going to accept it and then crib, or be a bad employee. That's not done. If you accept it, you got to then in good faith work, and deliver. Those are some basic things which I feel that as veterans we don't need to tell each other. It's an ethic that comes to us naturally, but I think it's important to spell it out. It's always good to say, look, plan your things well so that you get what you want, right? I had, and I have a few things listed out here which I'm going to just quickly read out. One is the range of salary that you expect, and this is from my own actual negotiation notes that I made. Okay, what kind of vacations do I get in that job? Do you get vacations every year, or is it just on paper? Right? What kind of health insurance do you get? That's important. ESOPs, relocation, if you're moving from one city to another, are they going to pay you? Because I know of live examples where somebody moved in good faith, but once this person had moved, he's told, look, no, we don't pay relocation. This guy's stuck because he did not talk about it during the negotiation and did not make it clear, right? Things like, especially if you're coming out of 20 years, you don't expect to travel second class in trains if you're going for a visit to one of your outposts, right? So it's good to also sort of find out, right, if I do traveling, what is the kind of hotels do I stay in? What kind of travel arrangement do I get? These are important. It's not just about salaries, right? Because if you're a colonel with 20 years of service, when I left, I had just started getting a PA for myself in the army, right? A PA, like an executive assistant. So I'm not saying I will demand that, but it's good to know if this role, and typically executive assistants are for senior roles. So if you're getting an executive assistant, that's a senior role. It's good to ask, why not? If you reach that level. I'm not saying you start by saying, look, I want an executive assistant because I was getting it as a car. You don't get that. Then, things like education policy. What is it? Is it that you're expected to work with them for a few years and then you get exposed to the education opportunities? Or do you, if you do some kind of education and then you have to sign a bond? Both have their own merits and demerits, but it's good to understand that. What are the, what grade are you at? This is very important. Vice president, but you're equivalent to a manager in the next function. No, it's important to know. Look, if this role is called a vice president, am I reporting to an executive vice president or a senior vice president or a head of department, or am I reporting to another guy whose grade is really very, very low? Because the name sounds very good, especially for Fauji's, they get swayed by the name.
Sure.
What are the,
Let me.
yeah. So I can carry on. So yeah, I think I'll stop here.
Let me bring you back. Yeah, because let's hear it from the HR as well in terms of how is and the why. So coming to you, Shiv, and then it's over to you, Vinay, after that. So your thoughts, please, Shiv. Over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think Colonel Abraham put it very, very beautifully. So there are only a few things that I would like to add. First and foremost, I think it is no different. It is no different, when a person is moving, from one organization to the other, or veteran is transitioning from defense to, the corporate life. Both of them need to do their research. Both of them need to find out, what is the value of that particular job in the market. And, and plus each one of us knows, for all practical purposes, what is that minimum amount below which I am not even going to think about accepting that role? So I think it just is as simple as that. And what Colonel Abraham was, alluding to in terms of the total rewards, I think that's a very, very beautiful point that he touched upon. Because at the end of the day, are you going to be stuck? Okay, this is my base salary, and I'm just going to look at that particular base salary and be happy with it because that number seems very fancy, or am I going to look at the other aspects around it? And I think Colonel Abraham mentioned it already, whether it is about the benefits that are provided, or whether it is about any kind of leave plans that the organization may have, so on and so forth. So that's the the other aspect of it. And the third aspect of it that I always recommend to veterans is look at the benefits that you received in the defense, and which are those benefits which you are okay letting go, and which are the benefits that you're not okay letting go. I think you need to be clear in your mind about those aspects. And moment you're clear about that, I think the conversation becomes very, very, very simple. And I think this particular in this particular age in time, the most important fact is that we all have access to internet. So there is enough and more networking that we can anyways do and figure out what is the worth of that job either ways. And it's just easy to figure out whether the number that is being offered to you is something that is good, not good, good, bad, ugly, as the case may be. So I'm saying it is not as complicated, given the fact that it's a networked world, and there is a lot of ecosystem that has already been created even in the veteran community for people to interact with each other. So that is what I'd like to say.
Thank you very much. And with from Vinay, what I would really like to know is maybe 4 or 5 tips on how one should be negotiating salaries. Because between Abraham and Shiv, I think they've covered what should be asked, but then maybe some tips would be more tangible, and maybe they can be taken home as takeaways. So over to you.
I have a very, very different view, Preeti, on this one, actually.
Please, yes, go ahead. Yep.
You know, this is like, classically, MBA people are not happy in their jobs. In fact, most MBAs leave their jobs in the first year of them joining them because they're calculating ROI. ROI on what is the fee investment done versus what is the job I'm getting, how is my EMI going to be taken care of. For army people also, for veterans also, is the same problem. They are looking at themselves at a certain worth, and they want that worth to continue in some way or the other because they're looking at ROI. Then they ask themselves, what did I do in the armed forces for 10 years or 14 years of service or 5 years of service? Why did I even do that? I could have done a corporate job, blah, blah, blah. So the first thing that people need to understand here is you need to pick up jobs that you think you're going to like doing. That's the most critical aspect for you to be happy, for you to be peaceful, and for you to be content. The minute you are happy, peaceful, and content, you will thrive, you will deliver, you will over-deliver, you will do very well, and you will grow quickly. The minute you chase money and not the job that you like, you will keep struggling, and you will keep taking baby steps as and when you grow. So first thing that you need to do is look at the job that you want to do and how that job can help you. Now, there are two approaches to negotiating your salary. First approach is that you look at your roti kapda makan, your basic expenses. What is it that you need to lead a normal good life? I mean, don't exaggerate figures with plus additions, and then have a conversation around that, saying that while the budget for this role may be, say, 10 lakhs, I'm just giving an example, my basic expenses per month is 1 lakh. So, even if you give me 12 lakhs, it'll at least help me. And then from there on, we will see how I perform and what happens, and we grow from there. So you sort of do that as one approach. Second approach is that you understand what is the role, and for that role, what is the range, which Colonel Abraham also actually mentioned. And if you think that that range is something you're looking at from your personal expenditure perspective, then go ahead and apply for that. But if you think that that's not what you're looking at, that's definitely going to be a problem, don't even go and apply for it. The fact that you want to apply for a job that has a low band and expect them to give you a higher band and then talk about it saying that what is this, they're not treating us well, etc., itself is a problem. Don't even go there. But at the same time, if you like that job and you think that it's okay if I get a couple of lakhs lesser, I think I'm going to do very well in this job, that experience will set you up for the next 20 years in your career. But if you get stuck in the rut of saying I want a high paying job, then you're stagnant there, because the high paying job won't increase. That will only remain, very, 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 very slow in their movement. And then you will be cribbing all your life. But on the contrary, when you start off, at a certain level and you do very well, your growth is exponential. Like, for example, I know of so many people who are joining startups for zero salary and only equity compensation. For a year, they're joining only at equity compensations because they believe that they can add value and create a big picture out of it. If you're able to do that, you can even start working at a zero salary. So, approaches are very simple. Look at the budget. First and foremost, look at the job. You should like the job. I mean, don't even look at money and go there, because then you're no different from an MBA grad who we think is, so confused. What is the point of, garnering a master's degree after paying 18 lakhs if your maturity is only as much as, oh, what's the CTC I'm going to get? And you, after coming with this maturity, also want to talk the same thing, then there's a problem. So look at that. Look at your roti kapda makan and see if you can compromise a little bit and go ahead. And otherwise, look at the range and only apply if you think you fit into that range. Otherwise, don't apply. As simple as that. And try doing free internships. I'm telling you, it's very underrated. Approach corporates and say that I don't want money. I think I have enough for me to manage for a certain time. Let me work for 3 months. Give me any department, or you figure out what are department. You see the way things will change for you. I think that's the thing.
Great point you brought out, Vinay, because I've actually done that. I've done that twice in the US, and it's worked really well for me. And I'm still, encashing the benefits from that free internship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. So
absolutely.
those practical experiences, I agree, they teach you much more than anything else. Time has flown by so quickly that we are on the 60th minute mark of our conversation. This is not the end. This is only the beginning of lots of conversations. There's been some amazing amount of comments that need some attention after this session is over. So the panelists would sort of go and have a look at it, and if appropriate, they will be sort of taking up on that. Please reach out to all of us. We are right here through LinkedIn. You will find all the tags right there. Like I said, this is only an ongoing conversation. By no means with the clock, when this is ending, that everything stops. Please reach out. Happy to talk. Happy to facilitate any of these conversations further. With that, just very quickly, everybody's thoughts, including Amit, yours. So I will come in from Abraham first. Couple of tips, tricks, anything that you feel, and very, very briefly, just 2 points each. I will come to Abraham with any tips, tricks for integration, and then I will keep on taking names. Over to you, Abe. Thank you.
Yeah. So just to summarize what we discussed today, one is break out of the stereotype, starting with your mind, right? Second is try and organize yourself so you're not with your back to the wall. And that is in many ways. These are the only 2 things, because the other things will automatically fall into place.
Thank you very much for that. And Shiv, it's over to you, my dear friend, for your thoughts, please.
So, the 2 things that come to my mind, the first and foremost would be to network. I mean, I think, that is something that you have to do. There are no 2 ways about it. And the second thing would be in terms of us versus them mentality. I think, that needs to go away. There is no us versus them. That's the most important thing. So the moment you start looking at, corporate, as us, and that's when the whole conversation begins.
Thank you very much. Very important indeed. Vinay, over to you, my dear friend, for your thoughts, please.
I started saying breathe in and breathe out. I'll end saying breathe in and breathe out. It's not that complex. It's not that difficult. Use common sense. Things will just work out. You don't need any of us to come and tell you any of those things. Just use your common sense. Things will work out.
Thank you. Very, very candid. And Amit, it is over to you, my dear friend, for your couple of thoughts. Off you go.
Again, all the things I could have said are already said in better ways by the 3 gentlemen before me. So I'll add the way I normally send ripples into the pond. I'll throw another boulder in. The crisis is real. Whatever the veterans feel is a reality. How they can overcome it is their own efforts, and how we can sensitize the corporate world. There's going to be a mix and match on this one. The only thing is we have to stop living in nostalgia. How corporates interacted with veterans 1 year ago, 5 years ago is moot. This is the post-COVID era. We will have to learn and find out new ways of doing. What Abraham sir has already done and what Vinay hinted at, this is the time of going and showing your value. finding out projects where you can make a difference, making that difference, and then asking for what you're worth. I think that's the way ahead.
Thank you very much for those candid thoughts again. And with that, it is a thank you very much to the audience today for being here. Thank you to our dear friends on the panel, Colonel Abraham Cherian, Shiv Kumar, Vinay Trivedi, my dear friend who assisted me today, Colonel Amit Verma, retired, our streaming partners, Echo Events. And this is me, Preeti Chaudhary, signing off from Veteran Corporate Integration, LinkedIn Local India Live. With these gentlemen here, until next time, please be safe and do take good care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.